This is Reverse Engineered.
Hey everyone, my name is Jon Penland, and Reverse Engineered is brought to you by Kinsta, a premium managed hosting provider. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Zsuzsa Kecsmar, who heads marketing and partnerships and is also a co-founder of Antavo. Zsuzsa, welcome to Reverse Engineered.
Thank you. Hi there. Hi, everyone.
So to get us started, Zsuzsa, for any of our listeners who may not be familiar, tell us a bit about Antavo. What is Antavo?
Antavo is a loyalty management platform. It means that with our technology, brands and retailers can run customer loyalty programs. We work with great partners all over the globe, solution partners, system integrators who would implement these kinds of loyalty programs for partners, and also loyalty consultants who would determine what is the best loyalty logic that would fit our clients. And of course, our amazing clients like BMW or Lagardère or Benetton all over the world.
Yeah, that's interesting. So when I was looking at your website, I got the impression that Antavo was primarily a technology program. But as I hear you speak about it, it sounds like it is a technology platform, but it is also it almost sounds like you do a bit of consulting almost for your clients and helping them set up a loyalty program, not just providing the software behind the program. Am I hearing that correctly?
No, unfortunately not. We are really focusing on technology, and we don't want to step on the toes of our partners. So we are focusing only on the technology to build this best-in-class loyalty platform, which is actually recognized by Gartner and Forrester, these global consulting companies who really keep track of the list of who are the best to count on in terms of technology. And we only focus on the tech, so our partners can focus on the services and the consulting, and the clients can focus on what they do best.
Yeah, awesome. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, you are one of Antavo's co-founders. So tell us a bit about Antavo's origin story. How did Antavo come to be?
We founded Antavo we started to work on Antavo back in 2011. And initially, it was a different product. We knew that we came from an environment when we had a great complementary skill set among the four co-founders. One was a great entrepreneur who built websites with a boutique agency. And then the other one was one of his former employees, who is still our CTO, so he was a technology person. The third person came with the sales approach, who worked with a software company before, and I came with the marketing eye and this international vision, saying, why not do it as a global company? Why to stay in our local market? So us together thought to build a marketing product, a marketing software as a service, but it was focusing on gathering new customers, new leads, which 10 years ago, in the age of when social media started, it was very viral. It reached like 30,000 marketeers. We were able to grow, even though we had quite a big churn. Like 30% of our customers would leave us every month because it was a seasonal product that we had. It is about contests and sweepstakes. So after like 5 years, we decided that we need to change. After Facebook's IPO, they were under the pressure to make money. There were Facebook ads. They considered sweepstakes and contests as their own competitors to their ads. So this is why we switched to an area which we thought was very close to what we did originally. We couldn't have been more mistaken because it's a completely different area, completely different target audience, but we didn't know that, and thankfully ignorance is sometimes the key to keep going, because you don't know what is that you don't know. You don't know that it's like very difficult to do. So we just pivoted, and from this lead generation small business software, we pivoted into a customer retention loyalty management platform. And that was not for the small businesses, but for the mid-market, and now these days to the enterprise.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. Kinsta had kind of a similar trajectory. Kinsta was initially launched as a CRM, or launched is too strong, was initially conceived as a CRM, and then eventually I say eventually, very rapidly pivoted into being a web hosting provider. It sounds like your story is different in that you actually ran a business for a number of years in a completely or in a different space. So if you started working together in 2011 and then it was 5 years later, if I'm hearing right, that was around 2016 before you pivoted into the focus that Antavo is working towards today. And that sounds like a wholesale change. You went from these kind of seasonal, social media focused projects or software, and then you switched into something that was very enterprise focused and is. So I'm curious about that transition. Did you guys, was it a point where you simply drew a line in the sand and said, we used to do this, now we do this? Or was there a time where you're doing both things at once for a while as you use one model to fund the setup of the next model?
Both. So till one point we thought that there is not much difference between the two.
Right.
And we were mistaken. We thought that this new thing is just a little extension of the old thing. But then the more we worked on it, we realized that the line needs to be drawn. We need to start something new. And fortunately, we had the trust of investors, and they were able to finance our operations till we were finding these new ways and developing the new product. So we were not under the pressure to develop the old product and make money out of it. It was very, very great that we had this support from them. And then after we started growing even more, we had another round, a bit larger round. And this is where we are now. We are just before a hyper growth. As last year, we doubled our revenue, and this year we at least will double our revenue.
Right. I was actually curious about that relationship to investors. But it sounds like, if I'm hearing correctly, you actually have investors that predate the current loyalty infrastructure platform. I'm sorry, the current loyalty technology that you're developing. You have investors that predate that transition. Is that right? You had investors that invested in the original business model as well? Wow. Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like one of the things I was going to ask about is what are some of the things that have been instrumental in Antavo's success? And I will ask about that more generally in just a second. But it sounds to me like we're already kind of hitting on something that has been instrumental for Antavo's success, which is having this sort of safety net or assistance to help you develop the product as you built the revenue to support the company. Has that been a kind of a critical part of Antavo's story?
Well, thinking back, I think, yes, it was a critical help back then at that point, for sure. And I still think today that our investors are great and they always acted. I always considered our board meetings as a support group when, we could tell what's going on and they would tell how they can help. These days it's starting to change. Now we're getting more serious. But back then they really supported us this way. So what were the critical factors that got us where we are? I think, as my co-founder likes to say, like 100% of businesses fail because the people in it stop doing it. And we just simply didn't stop, really. So there were times when it was really difficult financially. I think all businesses go through these kinds of phases. But we just simply didn't stop because we handled it somehow, or the founders, we didn't pay salaries for ourselves, and then we did it for a longer time because we believed in the larger goal, and we still believe in the larger goal.
Yeah. So pivoting a little bit away from that area of focus. So I'm curious, though, for somebody who is looking at Antavo from the outside, what are the benefits of a loyalty program? Why should a company, and I'm just thinking of like Kinsta as an example, why should a company like Kinsta consider launching a loyalty program?
I think B2B loyalty programs are also great, but what we are really good at is B2C loyalty programs. And B2C loyalty programs should be launched because caring about your own customers, keeping them happy it really pays off financially. And actually, like 79% of CEOs, according to Gartner, find a way to cater to existing customers in 2021. That's a research that we very much like because it really resonates with what we also working towards and working with. A loyalty program can help retain customers. And one of our consultant partners likes to put it that when the economy suffers, loyalty thrives. And this is what we experienced actually in the past 1 year or 1.5 years when we started this large growth, that we had these interests coming from so many companies, and we see it in the industry from consultants too. They see that they get inquiries. So one of them said that this year they've got as much inquiries as in the past 3 years combined. So there is a large growth now in this era when we just after a pandemic.
Sure. If there is a company, and that's an interesting distinction between B2B and B2C, and I think that's something as somebody who hasn't spent a lot of time thinking about loyalty programs, I think that's an interesting distinction and makes a lot of sense. But I'm curious, if you're in a B2C business, do you think there's a right time and a wrong time to launch a loyalty program? For example, can you launch a loyalty program too early? Is that something that businesses need to be thinking about?
I don't think that you can launch a loyalty program too early, but you will need to start with an easy one. And there are these tools for small businesses to launch a loyalty program. You can think of them like punch cards that could exist in a paper, but you do it maybe in a digital way. But if the company size grows and if you think of more mid-market and enterprise needs, it's a more sophisticated solution that's needed. For example, we set this rule for ourselves that we don't work with clients under a certain revenue that they have, annual revenue, because that number really defines their preparedness towards how we would work together. We really work together with many small clients, and it was oftentimes so much difficult because they simply don't have the personnel inside their organization. Typically, the person who would use Antavo within an organization sits in the marketing team, and it's a loyalty manager or a CRM manager, and it takes a certain preparedness for someone to have this job title in their organization.
Yeah. I'm glad you pointed that out. One of the things that I was curious about, as I think about Antavo and the way that you work with your customers, it strikes me as a really complex and challenging space to enter, both in terms, as you mentioned, of the sophistication of the customer, and also in terms of the complexity of what it is you do. I was looking at your website, and it seems that the loyalty programs can span, across websites, apps, storefronts, events. They're very far-reaching. So it just strikes me as a very challenging thing to do to enter this space. And then you're working with enterprise brands that everybody knows, like BMW and Pepsi. So I'm curious, how has Antavo been successful in entering this complex market and working with these enterprise customers?
I think it's a great observation that you have, and then it took some time for us till we realized this how a complex sale it is. It's not like an email tool that is sold to the marketing department. Here is the marketing department, the finance, the digital or IT, however they call them, is involved. Sometimes even product and product packaging. So it's really a holistic program. And if you see on the other side, the benefits of having such a complex sales process is that once, for example, BMW decides that, yes, they want to have a loyalty program, then they stick with it. And we have a great, very low churn number right now. Our clients don't really leave us, fortunately, because once they've made the decision that they want to go towards a loyalty program, they don't really shut it down. We had some clients leaving because of COVID. They went bankrupt. But that's an edge case, I would say, because it's really hard to stop a loyalty program. If you just think about it, there would be those customers inside who would have this disappointment of where their, points and benefits go. So and the real threat for ourselves is to be substituted with someone else. But till we do our job well, we can stay as this technology vendor to our clients.
Right. Yeah. That's really interesting. I think about it in the context of Kinsta, and we think of what we do sometimes as a complex sale because we sell hosting for websites, and websites can vary dramatically, and the needs of customers and their sophistication can vary dramatically. But in contrast, it feels like a relatively straightforward, right? Like we're selling hosting for a website. That's quite a bit different than saying you're going to integrate our technology into all of your customer-facing interactions and systems, right? That's an entirely different process. And I can see the flip side there, of course, as you highlighted, which is, as long as you guys deliver a quality product, your customers are going to have a lot of motivation to continue working with you. So something else I noticed on Antavo's website is that Antavo spends 64% of its budget on R&D. And so I'm curious, one, can you put some context around that number for our listeners so they understand what is R&D in the context of Antavo? And then why do you place such a heavy emphasis on R&D?
Well, we always came from a product background, and we want to keep this level to be the best product for loyalty management on the market. In order to do that, we will need to reinvest into the product, and R&D means developing the product itself instead of just developing for clients or serving clients or keeping salespeople or keeping account people and so on. We have this very strong developer base who are actually based in Hungary. I'm also Hungarian. And my colleagues do a great job developing the product itself. That's what we want to be the strongest about. Because product is our strength and focus and core. We don't want to do other things. This is how we are embedded into the great ecosystem of how business is done, and these systems are introduced to clients.
Yeah. You mentioned there that your company has developers there in Hungary, and Kinsta actually has a large developer base in Hungary as well. We actually have, over the last few years, gone remote with our developer team. So now we have developers in a number of different countries. But we do still find Hungary to be a uniquely interesting place to hire developers and valuable place to find developers. We have found the market for developers tighten down unbelievably in the last year. And I'm curious if you guys have experienced the same thing since we're actually operating and competing in some ways for talent.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm curious if you guys have seen the same thing there with your developer workforce.
10 years ago, when we started off, there was a difference between Hungary's capital and Hungary's countryside in terms of developer talent. Here on the countryside, it was great education, but costs were lower. And then in the capital, costs were higher. And then over time, it just really evened out, and it was the same kind of expensive everywhere. And now, in this post-pandemic era, it's evens out, not in the country level, but on the global level.
Yes.
So these developers are more and more expensive, I would say, but incomparable to the big hubs like San Francisco or London. It's still so much better to work with someone who is not there, but here. And we made this decision that, till this point, our development team is Hungarian, but now we work with so many multiple nationalities in all the other positions. We have, I think, 8 nationalities right now. And we work now remotely from all over the world. Even our developers are working remotely. Now it's 2 people in our office, in our amazing development office in Hungary. It's just really all remote these days.
Yeah. We went through a very very similar path where our developer team was there in Hungary, and there are some very unique benefits to For all of the advantages of remote work, there are some unique benefits to developing sitting in the same office. And we did take advantage of that for a long time. And then really in the interest of having application support 24 hours a day, we started branching outside of Hungary in building up our developer workforce. And then of course, COVID hit and everybody went home. And we're just in a lot of similarity to the place that Antavo is, where a lot of our developers are even, those who previously worked in an office are choosing to say, I would really rather stay home, and we're happy to offer that option to them as well. So I did have a question though. Something we've talked about a little bit is Antavo's roster of globally recognized brands. And I'm thinking again of companies like BMW and Pepsi. How does Antavo start a conversation with a company like that? How does that... There are a lot of businesses that would love to work with enterprises like BMW and Pepsi, and they just don't even know how to start the conversation. And I'm just curious what Antavo's approach has been to having conversations with these multinational enterprises.
So I think it's been two things which helped us very well. The first is that we always put a lot of effort into great content. So if you went to antavo.com, you would see right now, I think 206 articles all about loyalty programs. I know the exact number because we just recently renewed our website, and maybe that has grown since then in the past weeks.
Sure.
We were already writing thought leadership content and educational content about customer loyalty before we had the product, because it was like a year around 2015 when we were in between products, but we already positioned ourselves and spread the word as experts in customer loyalty. And I think that really helped, because most people, when they are researching an answer to their problem, they just type into Google, and then this is how they find answers. And our main goal is that Antavo pops up in their among their results, and then we can grab them with our expertise. And then when the time is right and they have this loyalty project, and they are recruiting vendors to consider, then they would consider Antavo too. So that's one thing. The other thing that I think was a successful, that led us to be able to talk to companies like BMW, is that we started to have these more enterprise clients. And our first enterprise client was Toys R Us. Unfortunately, they went down since then, but they still taught us so many things. And then we were able to win them because we had one of our partners so they were the clients of one of our partners, and this partner brought us in. And with their credibility, we were also considered credible, even though we just started off recently before that. And we were able to learn a lot from these clients. And then we were able to win the next client with this case study. And then as these events followed each other, now we are able to go after larger clients ourselves, or with the help of partners, because this whole word of introducing technology to clients, it's really an ecosystem. It's not single companies existing alone. It's really a cooperation between companies to, for example, launch a loyalty program or deliver any kind of digital transformation.
Yeah. Something that I feel like I hear as a recurring theme in your answers is the importance of patience. So something that you hit on just a minute ago was content marketing. And Kinsta, content marketing has been a cornerstone of what we've done since our founding as well. And something that I think a lot of companies get wrong in content is that they start writing content and they look for results after 3 months or after 6 months or even after a year. And it's really something where you have to back up and be, really patient. We're seeing dividends paid now for choices that were made in the content space 5-6 years ago. And again, something you mentioned early on is that another one of your co-founders said one of the reasons you've been successful is you didn't quit, right? Which I view kind of as another indication of just the importance of taking the long view, of being patient. And so I'm just curious, as you think about Antavo's success, to what degree do you think simply, patience, taking the long view, has been kind of a critical component of the company's success over time?
I think definitely patience plays a role, not just in company-wise, but in a person's personal life too.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, how patient you are as a person to wait till this company of yours would grow, and then you would feel happy about it. It's really, sometimes it's not about the company, but the person itself. Not everyone would like this. I'm sure that there are people who would like to see the work of their results more immediately. And sometimes I wish for that too. Sometimes I'm jealous of the hairstylists, because they can see their work immediately.
Sure.
Like after an hour, here is a delivered job. And for
Right.
me, it's hard to see that because what I do is really on the long run. But I don't mind it because I like to reflect, not in my past hour, but in my past week or year, and I see the progress. I still don't think that Antavo is like successful because we are still on the way, but we are starting to become successful as we are able to help our clients to be successful. So I would consider that as a great start. Also, I know that most of our colleagues, they are with us for a very long time. Since, I don't know, our longest colleague who's not a founder, she's been with us for 8 years already. And that's something when you have people on your side for a long time, because you can grow together and then you can stay together and develop together. So that's also something that I consider success.
Yeah. So in addition to, patience being an important personal virtue, there within, an entrepreneurial endeavor, something else that you've personally advocated in the past is the idea that as an entrepreneur, it's important to put your own mask on first. And so for our listeners, can you explain what that means? What does it mean to put your own mask on first? And then what are some choices that you've made to do that yourself?
Yeah, so, when you're traveling, you're on a flight, there is this video that would say that you should put your own mask on first, and after that, help your child or other people who are struggling with that. And I found this a very compelling idea, not just on a flight, but in general, which means that you need to feel good with yourself in order to be productive, in order to be helpful for others. And there was one time when I considered my time off also as working. I should do that again because when I'm recharging, when I'm sleeping, I'm still contributing towards my working hours, being rested. So when I actually sit to the computer, I will be super effective.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that time off is a huge energy reset for me in terms of both calming the chaos that can tend to crop up over time, just in terms of day-to-day tasks, and in giving me kind of like a clear perspective on what I need to be focused on. So like for myself, I found that over time, as somebody who's involved in a lot of different things at the company, tasks kind of build on top of each other, and you reach a point where it's like I have these 50 different things, and what's amazing is that you go away for a week and nobody needs you, right? And it's like, what in the world happened? When I was here a week ago, I had so much stuff going on, I couldn't find time to take lunch, but suddenly I take a week off, and actually the company does fine without me being here, right? And it's just such a you come back with you have a kind of a clean slate to some degree on what you're going to work on. And you have just kind of renewed focus on, all right, I want to focus on these things. So I just echo just the importance. I'm not an entrepreneur. I didn't found Kinsta, but just as somebody working in that startup environment of taking time away to recover and make sure that you're bringing your best self to work.
Yeah, but I also think that it shouldn't be also day off. It can also be just finishing your time during the day. I'm really not great at taking time off, like taking days off. This year I'm trying to have more days off, but last year it was only kind of around Christmas. But I think that stopping work in the afternoon is it's great because then you have the whole afternoon for you and your family. And I found that having children also helped with that, because if you have children, then there is like no way that you cannot stop. You can't really overwork, because you need to go and pick them up. They will be there. You can't work if you're with them. So I really found having children healthy for my, like, supportive for my mental well-being.
Yeah, that's so funny, because in culture at large, you won't hear that right, children are good for your mental health. But I will echo that sentiment, right? I have kids, and a lot of them swim, and they're in the pool at 4:45, and that means I've got to stop and get them in the pool, right? So it does kind of put a hard stop at the end of my day that forces me to remove myself. So I will echo the mental health benefits of having children. So that's awesome. So as we wrap this conversation to a close, I have a couple of wrap-up questions for you. So first, what is a go-to resource you would recommend to our listeners? So this is just something you found useful in your own life. It could be a blog, it could be a newsletter, an event, a book, just something that you would say listeners of Reverse Engineered should check this out.
Well, I've been following Marie Forleo for a long time. Her website is marieforleo.com. And she shares really useful business advice, and also often about things that I already know, but her way of thinking really helps me to restructure my way of thinking. And I find it oftentimes very helpful.
Okay, awesome. And then final question, where should we send folks if they want to connect with you or learn more about Antavo?
Please send them to antavo.com
Awesome.
if they are interested in launching a loyalty program. And I can be personally reached on LinkedIn. Happy to connect.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me on Reverse Engineered today, Zsuzsa.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. And thank you to our listeners. That's all for today's podcast. You can access the episode show notes at kinsta.com/podcast. That's KINSTA.com/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Reverse Engineered and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or the platform you're listening on right now. See you next time.